How's it going, guys? I'm Matt Torx, and in this series where I'm on a mission to experience and give my thoughts on every single game in the Fallout franchise, good or bad, we've arrived at the third installment released in 2001, Fallout Tactics. Now, Fallout Tactics is a pretty interesting chapter in the history of Fallout, being released 3 years after Fallout 2 and given a longer development cycle with 18 months of development, as opposed to Fallout 2's 9. Fallout Tactics takes a new spin on the Fallout formula, where instead of being a role-playing focused game, it's instead a real-time strategy-based tactics game, where the player controls a squadron of Brotherhood of Steel soldiers as they fight in a war for the Wastelands. Its gameplay is inspired by other tactics games like Final Fantasy Tactics and Ogre, which received mixed reviews at the time of its release from fans, as it sacrificed some of the more classic role-playing elements for an emphasis on gameplay and combat. But nowadays it's seen in a bit better light, as many players consider it a part of the classic Fallout trilogy, despite its controversial changes. So today, for the very first time, I'll be playing Fallout Tactics in 2024. The intro animation follows a military jeep as it drives through the desert, but is noticeably missing the 1950s blues music that was present in the last two Fallouts, instead opting for some generic guitar riffs. At the end of the animation, it shows that this game takes place in the area of Chicago, making it the first game in the series that ever took place outside of California. After that, we were given another opening narration. This time we were informed about how before the bombs dropped, the people at Vault-Tec had built tons of vaults all across the country, with the idea that all the vaults would be able to communicate with one another, with one great vault in charge, Vault Zero, a giant vault containing all of the great scientists and leaders of the United States. But the bombs dropped before that dream could be fully achieved, causing communication between vaults to almost be splintered entirely, sending many vaults to their doom without anyone to rely on. But one group of vault dwellers on the West Coast was able to resist the machinations of war and learn how to replicate and study the pre-war tech available to them inside the vaults. This made them a prime fighting force that was able to fight the scourge of the Wastelands and strive to bring their order to power, while closely guarding the secrets of their technology. They were the Brotherhood of Steel. Their influence continued to spread across the Wasteland, taking the technology available by any means necessary. When fighting the threat of super mutant populations, they created giant blimps to chase them across the mountains. One of these blimps crashed out of the sky in the great city of Chicago, causing chaos and death. The surviving members of this blimp, now separated by their fellow comrades, went on to form a new chapter of the Brotherhood, separated by miles of mountains from their West Coast counterparts, as well as by ideologies. I personally like how this narration explains the splinter in the Brotherhood, and its origins as a faction in general. Later in this series, the ideas created by this game would go on to shape and narrate the Brotherhood and their power, ideals, and presence throughout different parts of the Wasteland. Getting into the actual game, we get a full-blown tutorial to teach us the overall gameplay and mechanics. Things like running, talking, looting, and using weapons have been changed from different actions you cycle through using right-click to an all-in-one mouse-click style that changes automatically depending on the situation. A very welcome change in my opinion. The tutorial also introduces some new mechanics like alternative firing modes on weapons and a crouch and prone stance. By learning these new mechanics and making our way through the warehouse and talking to our elder, he informs us that we need to make our way to the last room to finish the tutorial. With the tutorial finished, we start the main game and get to customize one of the characters that will be in our squadron. I chose this shady looking dude, made sure he was good at stabbing and stealing things, then named him Snake Oil, since the name seemed to fit pretty well. The other members to join our team were a woman named Farsight and a man named Stitch. Now looking at their stats respectively, Stitch was clearly meant to be my medic and Farsight was meant to be the sniper of the group. But by not taking the time to read the game for the first 30 minutes, I had them each performing the exact opposite tasks they were good at. The first mission our squadron of initiates was sent on put us in the town of Brahmin Wood, where a bunch of raiders had seized control of a Brahmin farming village and kidnapped the people inside. So it was up to my group to take down the leader of the raiders and free the farmers for the Brotherhood. When we ran into the first group of raiders, I got to experience how the combat of this game actually plays, and subsequently how difficult it is. Anytime you get into a fight in this game, you have to be completely on top of each and every one of your members in order to actually win gunfights. Since the combat is operated in real time as opposed to turn-based, if you're not constantly paying attention to your group and adapting to the situation as you see fit, someone will die. And if your main character ever dies, you fail and get sent all the way back to the last save you made. And it becomes especially difficult because raiders seem to target your character more than anybody else, so I ended up dying quite a bit. But as I kept failing, I started to develop some really important strategies and rules so that you can survive in the wastelands. Rule number 1, always have a medic. Health values during a fight are always dropping, and party members can die at any moment. So make sure to give all the stimpaks and heals to one party member. Then during your fights, have them equip the stimpaks and constantly heal people as soon as their health starts to drop. Rule number 2, stealth is your friend. When traveling into enemy territory, the last thing you want is to be surrounded and outnumbered in the wide open. So make sure to use the shadows to your advantage by sneaking in a crouch or prone position as often as possible to increase your chances of winning firefights. Rule number 3, pick the weakest member to start fights. Now, even though it's pretty immoral, choosing the one soldier that means the least to your overall team and sending them to draw out enemy fire is a great strategy. And if you combine it with Rule 2, you can effectively ambush raiders by baiting out your soldier. This allows you to better preserve your own character because, like I said, if your main character dies, it's all over. Rule number 4, use your main character as a pack mule. By keeping any weapons, armor, or supplies that aren't being used by another party member, it makes sure that in the heat of a moment, if a character dies and you can't recover their body, not too much will be lost out of your squadron's total gear that could be used later. By adopting these 4 rules, you can greatly increase your chances of succeeding your mission and bringing honor to the Brotherhood. With my game plan set out, we went about slowly and methodically killing all the raiders within the compound. When we got to the building containing the imprisoned farmers, we were able to ambush the 2 raiders guarding it and take them out swiftly. We then continued through the area until we made it to the warehouse containing the bandit chief himself. I knew it was going to be heavily guarded, so I sent Farsight to scout it out. She was uncovered and targeted by every raider within that building. After seeing this, I sent Snake Oil and Stitch into the building as backup, and we fought hard and killed everyone in the building, including the chief himself, a man named Horace who was tougher than the rest, but at the price of one of our own. Despite our best efforts, the initiate named Farsight died in the line of fire, and she will never be truly replaced. Or I guess she will, as after completing the mission and making our way back to the Brotherhood of Steel's main base, the Bunker Alpha, I was permitted to assemble a new team of recruits for my next mission. And one of my options was Farsight, so either she made an incredible recovery or there's a lot of identical women named Farsight in the Brotherhood. So anyway, I rehired her, as well as added one new member to my team, a musclehead named Brian, who became my new bait. After our overall success at Brahmanwood, the team was sent back into the wasteland for a brand new assignment. Shortly after our rescue of the town of Brahmanwood, the raiders returned to the village and kidnapped its elder. The elder was currently being held captive at a location named Freeport. It was now our job to travel to Freeport, locate the elder, and neutralize anybody who stood in our way. So after getting geared up, we touched down outside of the base, and spent a chunk of time managing my inventory, since it seemed like every character was holding a stockpile of ammo that could have been used for a different person and that they weren't using. When I finished with that, I made sure to send Brian to the front of the formation, and started my crawl into the raiders' stronghold. We started off strong by easily winning the smaller fights we were put up against, but as time went on we ventured deeper into the base and got ambushed by a larger pack of raiders. And Snake Oil was shot in the head, dying on the spot. Now since my only save was back at the outside of the base, I decided that this would be the best point to end this episode for now. Now, as far as my opinion goes on this game compared to others in the series, I honestly have less to say than some other titles. I get that some people out there don't like it because it kind of started the trend of Fallout games prioritizing combat over role-playing, but that focus on combat makes it an easier game to just get into and play with a bit before feeling lost or overwhelmed in my opinion, while still being as difficult as the first two. And I've heard some people say it's a bad tactics game, a style of games that I'm not very familiar with, so I can't really input on. But I think it's a perfectly acceptable game, even if it's not the greatest in the series. And if it's something you think you would like, I'd recommend at least giving it a try. And if you want to see me play more of this game, or any others in the Classic Trilogy, make sure to leave a like and let me know in the comments down below. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.